The notification came in at 2:43 p.m., just after I'd finished a late lunch and was walking back to my desk with a coffee that had already started to cool. At first, I didn't even register what it was. Google Timeline. A location history update. Nothing unusual. I got them every few weeks, a summary of restaurants, commutes, random places I forgot I'd even been. But this one was different. There was a single line, sitting at the top of the list like a quiet accusation. Visiting Jimmy, permanent place. And beneath that, in small gray letters, for visits, one overnight stay. I just stood there, staring at it, holding my coffee, letting it soak into my palm until the sleeve softened. She never mentioned a Jimmy. Not once. Not in passing, not in a story, not even as a coworker or a high school friend. I tried to recall the name, any birthday cards, contact photos, anything. Blank. I clicked into the timeline. The location was a 2-story house about 30 minutes from our place. Suburban. Clean lawn. No business listed. No public check-ins. Just a residential home with a name now baked into her digital history like a scar. I took a screenshot before I could talk myself out of it. Later that evening, when she got home, I waited until she kicked off her shoes and poured herself a glass of that cheap Chardonnay she always pretended was nicer than it was. "You went out yesterday," I said casually, stirring something on the stove just to give my hands something to do. She nodded. "Had to drop by a client's place." "Why?" I handed her my phone. She read the screen, her face still. Then the faintest twitch in her eyebrow. "What is this?" "You tell me." "I don't know any Jimmy." "You sure?" "I mean, maybe it's some algorithm error. I've never been to that place. You know how these apps are." She smiled, tilting the wine glass. "Creepy tech." I nodded, pretending to agree. But I knew how Google Timeline worked. That permanent place tag didn't appear by accident. It required multiple visits and at least one overnight stay. That's how the algorithm worked, trained to spot patterns. Repetition. Intimacy. She handed the phone back and shrugged. "Delete it if it bothers you. It's probably just pulling data from somewhere else. Maybe I dropped someone off near there." She was already walking away, headed upstairs with the same easy confidence she used to explain late meetings and delayed flights. But I knew what I saw. That night, after she fell asleep, I pulled out her laptop. I'd never gone through her stuff before. Not really. But something cracked open in me. Not anger. Not yet. Just a cold, buzzing awareness. Like hearing a faint sound in the walls and realizing you've been living with it for months without noticing. Her browser history was clean. Too clean. But cached images told a different story. I traced one JPEG thumbnail to a folder buried in her downloads. It was a photo, cropped at the waist, of her sitting on a familiar brown leather couch. One leg tucked under her, the kind of posture she only used when she was relaxed. Safe. That couch wasn't ours. I reverse image searched the visible artwork on the wall. A framed print of an old boxing match. Within 5 minutes, I'd found it on an Instagram profile. A public one. At J_King_83. I clicked in. His name was James King, but his friends called him Jimmy. He only had 73 posts. Mostly photos of old records, whiskey, and slow-cooked meat. But 2 weeks ago, there was one that hit me like a hammer. A blurry shot of that same couch. Someone's foot was visible, tucked under them, just like hers. A painted toenail, barely in frame. She always wore rosewood mauve. I closed the laptop, sat in the dark, and stared at nothing. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I acted normal. Made her coffee, kissed her cheek, pretended I had a last-minute meeting and left the house an hour earlier than usual. But I didn't go to work. I drove to Jimmy's house. I parked 2 streets over, walked the rest of the way, and waited. At 10:43 a.m., she pulled up in her car. She didn't hesitate. She didn't look around. She walked right up to the door and let herself in with a key. I stayed in my car for almost an hour after she went inside. Not sure what I was waiting for. Maybe proof. Something irrefutable. Not just a hunch or a tag in a timeline. Something that couldn't be spun into a coincidence or explained away with her soft voice and practiced calm. The kind of truth that doesn't leave room for conversation. At 11:36, the curtain shifted in the upstairs window. Just a sliver of movement, like someone checking if the world was still watching. Then nothing. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. I imagined her silhouette behind the glass, one arm reaching back to pull her hair loose from its clip, the same way she did at home when she wanted to feel like herself again. It took everything I had not to storm the door. But rage felt useless here, like throwing punches underwater. Eventually, I left. I didn't go home. I didn't go to work either. I parked in the lot behind a discount furniture store and stared at the dash for hours. Around 3, I went inside just to use the restroom and wash my hands. My reflection in the mirror startled me, like someone I hadn't been introduced to yet. When I finally pulled into our driveway just after 6, the sun was starting to soften. She was already home. Lights on in the kitchen. I sat in the car until I saw her shadow pass by the front window, phone tucked between her shoulder and cheek, laughing. Like she hadn't just walked out of someone else's life and stepped cleanly back into mine. I cooked dinner that night, shepherd's pie, the way she liked it, with the potatoes burnt just a little on top. She complimented it like she always did, still texting as she chewed. I asked how her day had been, and she smiled, that bright, polished smile that always made me feel like I was seeing her from across a distance. Busy, she said. Meetings, you know. Client work. I think I need to block off next weekend, by the way. Another overnight thing. Might be LA. Might be here. TBD. I nodded. Asked nothing. She didn't notice. That night, while she was in the shower, I opened the fridge and just stood there. The bulb flickered once. A faint buzzing sound from somewhere behind the shelves. Everything felt cold and distant, even the leftovers. A bag of grapes she never ate. A yogurt I'd never seen her touch. Things she kept buying, as if playing a part she barely believed in anymore. She came down later with wet hair and a towel wrapped too high, humming some songs she used to hate. I didn't say a word. The next day, I set up a burner email account. Nothing fancy. Just an empty Gmail address. And I used it to register a new Google account, one I could install on an old phone I'd found in the junk drawer. That night, after she fell asleep, I slid the old phone into her gym bag, wrapped in a spare t-shirt, plugged in, fully charged. Silent. Invisible. It only took 2 days to confirm everything. She went back to Jimmy's on a Thursday. Stayed for 4 hours. Google Maps showed the same ping. Same front door. Same spot on the couch, probably. The timeline marked it again, visiting Jimmy, permanent place. I wondered if she even realized the tag had updated. If she ever looked. I zoomed in on the map and noticed something strange. There was a small blue dot down the street. An overlay from the timeline, showing a frequent route. I clicked it. It wasn't hers. It wasn't mine. It was Jimmy's. His commute to a warehouse across town. Tracked by the same algorithm. That's when it hit me. She hadn't just been there 4 times. She'd synced her account to something, maybe a shared Google Home, or maybe his Wi-Fi. And that meant she hadn't just gone there. She'd stayed, at least once, overnight. Which explained the toothbrush she kept in the glove box. The one she said she used for midday meetings. I opened it that night while she was in the shower again. It still smelled like mint. Like her. I watched her sleep that night, the curve of her back rising slowly with each breath. I'd memorized that shape, that rhythm, and now I didn't know what any of it meant. By Saturday, I knew I had to see him. Jimmy. I thought about knocking. Just walking up to the door and asking him who he was. Asking if she called herself single or unhappy or almost divorced. asking if he'd seen her laugh at the same stupid commercials she used to pretend not to like with me. But I didn't go to his house. Not yet. Instead, I did something worse. I found his Facebook page. It wasn't much, just a few old photos, mostly of his dog and some woodworking projects. But one post caught my eye. A blurry Polaroid from maybe a year ago. A firebit. 2 glasses of wine. Her hand, barely visible, resting on someone's thigh. A ring still on her finger. My ring. No tags. No comments. Just one like. Hers. I took a screenshot. I didn't know what I was building. What I was collecting. I wasn't planning a confrontation. I wasn't even planning to leave. But some part of me wanted the weight of evidence. The quiet, devastating truth. Not just for her. For me. To hold it in my hands and say you're not crazy. That night, I printed the photo. Taped it inside the spice cabinet where she never looked. Next to the cinnamon she never used. Where it would sit, silently, waiting. 2 weeks passed, and I said nothing. We went to dinner with friends. Laughed. Split the check. We watched 3 episodes of a show she'd already finished without telling me. She played dumb, reciting surprise like it was a script she hadn't quite memorized. I nodded at all the right moments. Smiled where I was supposed to. But every night I checked the tracker. The old phone in her gym bag kept updating. New visits. Same address. Jimmy's place was now pinned permanently in her Google timeline. The algorithm had made up its mind. It wasn't a one-off anymore. It was a routine. She was building something there. And I was just the scaffolding. What I didn't expect was the second location. It popped up on a Tuesday morning. A detour, 20 minutes southeast. A nondescript duplex in a cul-de-sac near a rundown strip mall. Timeline marked it simply. Frequent visit, unnamed place. It didn't have the permanent place label yet, but it was close. Just one more visit, and it would be added to the map forever. She told me she was working late, that a pitch got pushed back. I pretended to believe her, stirring sauce in a pan while she changed upstairs. I heard her heels on the floorboards, the soft metallic clink of the necklace she only wore to see him. I stayed up until midnight that night. She came home just after 11. Her hair was damp, like she'd showered somewhere else. I waited until she was asleep, then checked the tracker. Not Jimmy's house. The duplex again. I zoomed in. Satellite view. The driveway was cracked. A trash can knocked sideways near the curb. No cars. No sign of life. So why was she there? I went back to her laptop the next day. Focused this time. Not just looking for photos. I opened her Chrome profile and went through her autofill logins. There were dozens. Banks, shopping, her gym. One stood out. An account for Cloud Nest Home Security. I clicked the link. It was a smart home app for controlling things like locks, thermostats, and cameras. She was still logged in. There were 2 properties linked to her account. One was ours. The other had no name, just a street address. The duplex. I stared at the screen, heart pounding, as I clicked into the live feed. It opened. No password prompt. A camera view loaded slowly. At first, I thought it was buffering. But no, just dark. The feed showed the inside of a small, narrow living room. Wood floors. A couch facing a blank wall. An empty coat hook. The place looked and used. Staged almost. Nothing personal. No photos. No books. No reason to be there. Until someone walked past the camera. Not her. A man. Maybe late 30s. Wore a hoodie pulled low. He moved across the frame and out of view in 3 seconds. But something about the way he moved stayed with me. The stillness in his face. Like he wasn't in a hurry. Like he didn't expect anyone to be watching. I closed the laptop. Didn't sleep. The next day, I drove to the duplex. I didn't get out of the car. Just watched. Parked 2 houses down, windows cracked, engine off. It was smaller than it looked in the photos. One light was on. Dim, no movement. Then, around 7:15, she pulled up. Alone. She got out, keys in hand, and walked right to the door. Didn't hesitate. Let herself in. The porch light flickered as the door closed behind her. I waited 10 minutes. Then 15. My hands started to shake. I turned the engine on and drove away. That night, she came home just before midnight again. She looked tired, worn down in a way I hadn't seen before. "What's wrong?" I asked casually. She blinked, then smiled, faintly. "Just long day. Nothing serious." I watched her eat a few crackers with one hand while scrolling with the other. She laughed at something on her screen. I imagined the man from the duplex, the empty room, the silence, and I started to wonder, what if Jimmy wasn't the betrayal? What if he was just the distraction? Because she wasn't just cheating. She was hiding something, something bigger than either of them. I couldn't stop thinking about the man in the video. The stillness. The way he moved like the house was his. Like she wasn't visiting, she was watching. I waited until she left the next morning. Claimed she had back-to-back meetings downtown. Kissed my cheek with a softness I hadn't earned lately. Then she was gone. I didn't go to work. I went to the duplex. There were no cars out front. The porch light still flickered in that broken, dying way. I walked to the door and knocked twice. Nothing. No footsteps. No voices. Then I saw it, barely visible beneath the mat. A key, half buried in dust. Not even hidden. Just forgotten. My hand shook as I picked it up. It turned cleanly in the lock. The door opened with a soft click. The smell hit me first. Not rot. Not mold. Just emptiness. Like old wood and boxed-up lives. The air was dry. Still. Inside, everything looked the same as the security feed. Sparse. Undisturbed. The couch, the blank wall, the hook. But there was more I hadn't seen. A second room. I moved slowly, quietly. The silence felt so thick it pressed against my skin. The second room was a bedroom. Bare mattress. No sheets. A desk with nothing on it but a single folder. Yellowed. Manila. Out of place in a home with nothing else. I opened it. Inside were printouts. Records. Some were public. Old property listings. A utility bill in someone else's name. But some weren't public. One was a background check. For me. My full name, job history, address history. Even the plate number of my car. I stared at it, unable to breathe. Beneath that, another report. Jimmy. Same thing. Only his file was thinner. Then, at the bottom of the folder, a photocopy of a driver's license. Not mine. Not Jimmy's. Hers. Only it didn't say Emily on it. It said Rachel May Connors. Different last name. Different middle name. Same face. Same eyes. Issued in another state. One we'd never been to together. Expired 5 years ago. I staggered back and nearly knocked over the desk chair. She told me she was born in Michigan. Grew up in the suburbs. I'd met her parents. At least I thought I had. Hadn't I? Hadn't I? That afternoon, I drove back to the apartment and dug through our filing cabinet. No birth certificate. No passport. No tax returns older than 2 years. Everything that existed on paper about her had a start date after 2019. I checked her LinkedIn. It didn't exist anymore. Deleted. I opened the security feed again, just to prove to myself that I hadn't imagined the man in the duplex. But the camera was offline. The app showed the last recorded frame. Static. Then black. She'd turned it off. Or maybe he had. That night, I waited for her to come home. She was late. Said traffic. Said something about a late dinner with a client who wouldn't shut up. I asked how work was. She said fine. I asked if she still had that gym bag. She said she'd lost it. Left it in an Uber. Weird, right? I asked if she'd ever lived in Oregon. She froze. Not even a blink. Just a moment too long. No. Why? I shook my head. Someone at work said you looked familiar. She smiled then. Yes, I just have one of those faces. That was when I knew. It wasn't just cheating. It was everything. The house. The fake name. The man in the video. The fact that she was watching me as closely as I was watching her. And I realized something I'd been too afraid to see. I wasn't investigating her. She'd let me. She wanted me to know just enough. Just enough to keep me distracted. Just enough to keep me afraid. Just enough to make sure I didn't ask the real question. What happens when I finally confront her? It happened on a Sunday. Rain came down in that relentless way that doesn't soak the ground so much as beat it down. She was in the kitchen, barefoot, humming something tuneless while she chopped shallots for a soup she never made before. I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't sit across from her and pretend we were married. Pretend we were people. I couldn't play the part of husband when I didn't know who the hell I'd married. So I said it. I went to the house. She didn't look up. What house? The duplex. The one near Kendall and Pierce. The one with the flickering porch light. That stopped her. Just for a beat. She set the knife down slowly. Wiped her hands on a dish towel. Then she turned, leaned against the counter, and looked at me like we were starting a new conversation. So, you went. No panic. No denial. Just acknowledgement. You left the key under the mat, I said. Not exactly subtle. She tilted her head. You think I'm hiding something, aren't you? She walked to the fridge, opened it, took out a bottle of water, unscrewed the cap with slow fingers. Jimmy's real, she said. He's not some made-up lover. We've been seeing each other for a while. You probably figured that out already. I did. But he's not what you think. I waited. He's my brother. That stopped me. No, he's not. She smiled faintly. Half-brother. We have the same father. Long story. But that's not the point. Then what is the point? The house isn't his. It's mine. I've had it for years. Bought it before I met you. She walked around the kitchen island and stood across from me. Her voice lowered, almost conspiratorial. It's a safe, not a home. A lock without a door. What the hell does that even mean? She placed both palms on the granite. I have things I needed to keep off the record. Documents. Evidence. Not against you, against someone else. And I needed you to never know. But you're cleverer than I gave you credit for. I stared at her. Cold spreading in my chest. You're lying. Am I? She said. You saw the background check, didn't you? Yours. Jimmy's. Mine. I nodded. You weren't supposed to see those. But now that you have, maybe it's time I tell you what this really is. She walked into the living room, opened the drawer in the coffee table, took out a small black envelope, dropped it in front of me. Inside were photos, black and white, surveillance style, of me, in my car, at work, leaving a grocery store, dated 2 years ago, before we were married. My stomach turned. Why would you have these? She didn't answer. Just watched me like she was waiting for something to click. And something did. The day we met. She said she was in marketing. Worked for a brand consulting firm. Gave me a fake company name I never bothered to Google. I thought it was charming. A little mystery. But it wasn't mystery. It was cover. You were watching me, I said. Before we even met. I was assigned to you, she said. The room felt like it was folding inward. Assigned. She sat down on the armrest of the couch. Crossed her legs. There was a case, she said. A financial one. You were a potential leak. Not even a person of interest. But you had access to things. To data. And I was supposed to observe. Blend in. Build rapport. And you married me? That wasn't part of the assignment. But you did it anyway. She didn't answer. I felt something inside me lurch. Like an anchor pulling loose from the sea floor. You never loved me, I said. Her eyes softened, just slightly. No, that's not true. Then what is true? She stood up. I resigned a year ago. From the agency. I buried it. Burned the contract. But they never let go. They just stopped asking nicely. So I used Jimmy. I used the house. I used you. To buy time. For what? To disappear. My mouth went dry. Why now? I asked. Like I'm clean now. Because I think you're in danger. The words hit me harder than any betrayal. From who? I don't know, she said. But someone accessed the feed last week. The duplex. A remote login. Not me. Not you. How do you know it wasn't me? Her eyes darkened. Because I watched the footage. And then she pulled out a second envelope. Inside, a still frame. Of me. In the duplex. The day I visited. But the timestamp was wrong. It was from the night before. A man with my build. My hair. My jacket. But not me. My hands went numb. I don't know who that is, I whispered. Neither do I, she said. And that's when the front door handle turned. Once. Twice. A slow, deliberate rattle. Then silence. We both looked at the door. And realized we weren't alone. The sound at the door stopped. Not a knock. Not a ring. Just that faint, unsettling rattle of metal on metal. Then silence. She stood perfectly still, back rigid, one hand drifting instinctively to the edge of the coffee table like she was reaching for something that wasn't there. I whispered, Did you lock it? Her voice was barely audible. I always lock it. We waited. No sound. I moved first, slowly crossing the living room to the front door. My heart hammered so loudly I was sure she could hear it too. I pressed one eye to the peephole. Nothing. Just an empty porch. Rain falling in sheets. The street quiet and unbothered. Like nothing was wrong. I opened the door anyway. The night smelled like damp concrete and headlights. But no one was there. No car. No figure disappearing into the dark. Just an envelope on the welcome mat. No markings. No return address. I picked it up and shut the door behind me. She was already back at the kitchen island, arms crossed, eyes on the envelope like it might detonate. Open it, she said. Inside was a single sheet of paper, typewritten, for lines. Visits to Jimmy's house, verified. Overnight stay, verified. Permanent place status, active. Next location, yours. There was a timestamp at the bottom, 2:43 p.m. The same time I'd received the original Google timeline notification. The first breadcrumb. I stared at the page, unable to look away. They've been watching us both, I said. She nodded, lips pressed so tight they turned white. Who's they? I asked. But she didn't answer. Instead, she walked upstairs without a word. Came back 5 minutes later with a black duffel bag, pre-packed. A burner phone. 2 flash drives. And a revolver. I didn't know what shocked me more, how quickly she moved or how calmly she handed me the second burner. This is yours now, she said. Wipe everything else. Are we running? I asked. No. Then what are we doing? She looked at me like she had 2 different answers and was trying to choose the lesser one. We're ending it. That night, we drove together for the first time in weeks. Not speaking. The silence between us wasn't forgiveness. It was calculation. 2 people who had seen the full shape of the other and were still deciding whether to move closer or draw a weapon. We parked 5 blocks from Jimmy's place. She took the sidewalk. I circled the alley. She knocked 3 times. The porch light didn't flicker this time. It was already off. No one answered. She tried the door. Unlocked. I moved in from the back, stepped into the kitchen just as she entered from the front. The house was empty, but not still. Lights on. Music faint, something instrumental and forgettable. A laptop open on the coffee table, screen dimmed but not dark. She walked to it. Tapped the key. The screen lit up. It was paused on a Google Maps timeline. A familiar interface. Zoomed in on our house. Red lines. Movement trails. The marker pulsing. She clicked into the menu. Timeline history. 3 locations. Jimmy's. The duplex. And now ours. Someone cloned your account, she said quietly. I scrolled further. There was a tag. Visiting. Permanent place. Below it, photo review pending. She stared at the words, her eyes wide now. Not afraid, not even angry, just resigned. She whispered, "They're documenting us." Why? To erase us. That's when the laptop made a noise. A chirp. New notification. Photo added. She clicked. The screen showed an image of us. Right now. Standing in Jimmy's living room. Taken from inside the house. Not security footage. Not through a window. The camera was here. We turned at the same time. There was a blinking red light in the vent above the doorway. Hidden. Silent. Watching. She didn't hesitate. Climbed onto the coffee table, ripped open the vent cover. Inside, a tiny camera, a transmitter, and a SIM card slotted into the side. She yanked it out and handed it to me. Destroy it. What about the feed? The person on the other end? She shook her head. They already got what they wanted. We left everything. The house. The photo. The laptop. Burned the SIM card in a metal trash can behind a gas station 2 towns over. Left no trace. 3 days later, she was gone. Not gone like she used to be. Not at Jimmy's or the duplex or in someone else's bed. Gone. No note. No call. Just the burner phone left on my pillow with a single message typed on the lock screen. Don't try to find me. It's the only way you live. And for the first time since the beginning, I believed her. Because she hadn't been hiding an affair. She'd been hiding me. I still get the notifications. Every couple of weeks. Someplace I've never been. Some name I don't recognize. Always the same format. Visiting. Permanent place. I open them, always. Not because I want to know, but because I need to be ready. Because when the final tag shows up, the one with my name, I'll already be watching. Thanks for watching. If this story pulled you in, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss the next confession. Until next time, take care and watch who you trust.